We want to continue our conversation, and to me, all of this builds on itself. Well, always from all the different Reiki things that we talk about and do, but last month we really focused on skills with listening and taking that Reiki ability to go inward and hear yourself. And so one of the influences that is going on that we hear a lot about and going on in our own lives is decision making. And it seems like kind of to me, I sometimes wonder, like, how did these topics come up to be what we're talking about in a distance Reiki share? And why is this important? And how come this is what we hear? Because we do journeys on this, like the meditation that you just did. We do those for ourselves and really listen into it, like what is needed both in our own lives, but also in our communities, our circles like this, and how we can use Reiki to help in very practical ways. So decision making to me is always a practical part of my life. And, I'm 67 now, so I'm way better at it than I was maybe when I was younger. Sometimes I was super clear about my decision and driven to accomplish whatever that decision was. But other times there's so many different influences that can affect our decision making. And one of them, and I know we've talked about this a lot in this circle and in our YouTube videos and things, is accessing your authentic intellect. So your authentic intellect is the part of you that holds your wisdom from, in the couple weeks ago, we talked about your gut brain, your heart brain, your head brain, and how aligning all of them and then aligning all of your chakras together so that everything has a voice. All of you has a voice. And so your authentic intellect is that part of you that knows from, like, I just saw a song. I have to remember what that is. Maybe it'll come to me. Just saw a song of The Way Knows the Way. And anyway, so in decision making, we can have a lot of external influences that can affect our authentic intellect, that affects our ability to make decisions with clarity, confidence, and self-trust. So the other focus today is not just the authentic intellect, but the result of being able to hear your authentic intellect is that self-trust. So leading all the way back to really getting in touch with you, using Reiki to do that, from your gut brain, which is that, gut instinct, that gut knowing. Sometimes it comes in from a soul level. Sometimes it comes in from life experience, but that, trust your gut, that knowledge that we have. It's part of our authentic intellect. Our heart brain, part of our authentic intellect, what our heart knows, what our heart carries within it. And to me, this comes in, when we do the invocations and we're inviting that divine heart, that is the heart of consciousness in creation. So your heart holds that knowledge, it holds that intellect within it. Your head brain, well, your head brain also holds your soul's knowledge. It holds that as well. It also holds a lot from your life experience. It has the wisdom of your skills. It has the wisdom of mistakes. It has the wisdom of fears. Like sometimes you're listening to your fears and you think, well, are the fears real? Is it trying to tell me something? Is my head trying to tell me something that I need to be paying attention to? And sometimes it's fears that are just unfounded or not unfounded. I don't want to invalidate them, but you also need to let them go. So there are a lot of things that can erode and hide your authentic intellect and your self-trust that ultimately comes in for that decision making. You have all parts of you aligned. You're listening from your whole body. And you also can observe some of what we call your pain points. So things like what makes it, what can hide your authentic intellect, your self-trust from you, your clarity of mind from you when you go to make decisions, or just, to me, sometimes they can be the small ones. Am I going to go for a walk or am I going to do the dishes? I mean, it can be as simple as something like that, all the way to the big one. Right now, we're trying to decide what car to buy. And sometimes they're way bigger than that. And so, decision points or decision making is everything from the practical to the long-term planning. So what decision do I make today that affects 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now? What are the priorities of my decision making? So lots of questions come into decision making, going back to the pain points that can affect your authentic intellect. It causes, it can hide it from it, make things more confusing. You can have external expectations, like from society or family or your culturally created self, the gender, your age, your personal circumstances that are going to affect your choices and your desires. You can have self-doubt. And self-doubt is different than discernment. So self-doubt, when you observe it, you can move it into discernment so that you can, look at it and know, is this self-doubt, or is the self-doubt actually giving me accurate information that I need to know, and I should check in on that? Because I do believe in checking in on these things. And so that's one of the things that Reiki can do. So, speaking of how we use Reiki in all of these circumstances, is what we just did with the invocation. That activates Reiki. It gets everything moving. It lifts you into a higher level of consciousness. So you can observe something like, well, what's up with this self-doubt? Wait a minute. Am I looking at the external circumstances around me, or am I listening to me and what's true for me? Am I able to access my gut, brain, heart, brain? And if not, what is that about? And so you can use Reiki in something like what we just did in the depth of a meditation, or self-Reiki, or Reiki in a session. You can also use Reiki on the fly. Personally, I do a lot of this with the mental emotional symbol and the Karuna symbol, NOSA. Both of these, to me, really come in to clarify for me. It activates my discernment. It activates my intuition, inner guidance, inner authority. And it also does activate self-trust because I know I'm actually hearing me from multiple levels, and I'm using discernment if some of these pain points come in, because maybe they're accurate information as well. So sometimes we're letting them go. Sometimes we're, observing them. And sometimes we're actually saying, okay, wait, that outside influence was important for me to notice. That self-doubt, yeah, maybe I should look at that. Sometimes our authentic intellect gets clouded by the overwhelming number of choices that we have and how many choices can show up in a day. One of the things that we've talked about in the past are the life cycles that that we can be in, and that can influence our decision making. That can influence, like when I think of overwhelming choices, that's that. It immediately took me to, in the medicine wheel, we think of the south as the direction of the summertime and the fullness of the sun and the fullness of life, and everything's working, and suddenly now it's overwhelming because there's so many choices too. That's always, of course, the good side of the overwhelming choices, is when everything's working and there's so many different things to think about. But the abundance of options can actually, it can cause procrastination. It can cause decision fatigue. How to decide which way do I go? Again, sometimes from the little choices all the way to the big ones. The Karuna symbol, Kriya, is another good one for this because it helps clarify your priorities. If you can look at all the different overwhelming options, you can see, there's some priorities that I need help with, like I need that organizational mind. And so what happens when you bring in the Reiki energy is what you're actually saying is activate those higher, excuse me, activate those higher frequencies within me so that I elevate to another level of my own consciousness, my own mind, heart, gut, whole body. So I can hear myself and I can see through it all. And then also what Reiki does is a lot of times it does it for us. Like it literally activates it for us and helps us move beyond the surface of what we're experiencing. It can take us deeper into our inner knowing. Sometimes, of course, most of the time, your choices and decision making are based on your resources. Resources, finances, sometimes timing. Like sometimes your timing just isn't there, or the decision maybe you would want to make first, and the timing's off. And you have to listen to, what's my timing here? Sometimes the resources are daily considerations. You've got a family, you've got kids, you have, in my case, kids, grandkids, in-laws that are 96 and 92, caregiving, just life in general, but also your daily considerations that you have work, you have, again, taking it all to finances, having fun, put that in there, let's have some fun. And sometimes the pain point can be a fear of making mistakes. What if you went the wrong way? What if your gut is telling you something, but it's really hard to make that decision? And fear of making a mistake. And maybe that fear of making a mistake is from either previous personal experiences, or sometimes you can see the mistakes other people have made and think, I don't want to make that mistake. So how do you get beyond that? Again, discernment, observation, clarity of thought. Okay, look at this. I have a fear of making a mistake. What's that about? Is it a mistake I'm about to make? Or is it a fear of making a mistake and I need to let that go and let that be healed and move into that self-trust that you can hear you, you can discern you, or sometimes for myself, I'm going to choose the way knows the way. One of my biggest ones lately has been to remember the path of least resistance is a really valid path. And it is often my best choice. So I just think, what's the easiest way through this? What's the least resistance? And again, I use Reiki for that because I can have natural resistance just because. Like, and sometimes it's more than discernment. Sometimes it's like just the energy of resistance. And that can be from past experience. Sometimes it's very emotional. The decisions that you have to make are big and serious and impactful. And the outcome matters. And the decision can even be sometimes life or death. Sometimes it can be wellness. Sometimes, I mean, so many different things where strong emotions are in the mix. And learning to go deeper. And again, it's another area. This is where that distance symbol is the one I think of as the heart symbol. That distance symbol will take you right through the noise of that external emotion that's true, validating it, but take you deeper into your own heart to be able to hear you. And so I very specifically use that distance symbol to go in, and it's like a bridge of light. You know how we do the bridge of light in the journeys, and we go over it and we go into the third heaven and to the river of peace and the tree of life. It's the same bridge of light, but that bridge of light now is coming from your external personality and circumstances and going inward deeper and deeper and deeper. And as you're crossing that bridge, to me, the way I see it is that it's going right into my heart, right into my soul, and a deeper sense of self to know what is, what's the truth about the emotions, allowing myself that the emotions are valid and it is how I feel. So it's not bypassing the emotions. It's going into your authentic intellect and your heart about that circumstance and what choices you have and how to get to decision making. Sometimes you can have conflicting values and desires. I definitely can understand that. And by values, it can be everything from a really important, serious value all the way to what do I want to do more? One of those that is interesting to me right now is, my husband just retired. And, it's like, okay, well, what does retirement mean? Like, does that mean like suddenly you just play all the time? what does that mean? What does that even look like? And it's so individual and unique. And of course, he has to figure that out for himself. And I'm moving along with that, kind of in the mix of it. And of course, that's actually an easy one. Well, it's a little complicated. Actually, it's more than just easy. So, anyway, going back to why do we talk about this here? Because we always think in terms that Reiki is applied spirituality. It will take us to those beautiful spiritual moments of awe and that extraordinary spiritual experience that we can have with Reiki. But it also comes into, if you think of what Usui actually was using when or doing when he was on the mountain, he was asking for that ability to be in peace and to know his purpose. Anshin Ditsume, an enlightened state of being in that particular area. And Reiki energy is what answered him. That's what came to him as the method that he could use, the energy that he could work with that would take it to that. The 5 Reiki ideals: just for today, I will not be angry. Just for today, I will not worry. Just for today, I will be filled with gratitude. Just for today, be devoted to my work, not just job, but, devoted to self and devoted to your well-being. Just for today, I will be kind. Those Gokai is what they are called. Those were his instruction to activate Reiki, say those twice a day. And it was all about mental well-being and physical health. So if I think about clarity of mind and how I can use Reiki energy to access that clarity, which is part of my authentic intellect, ultimately what that does is builds my confidence and self-trust so that I can, sometimes I'm winging it, sometimes sometimes it doesn't mean I'm not nervous about the decisions I'm making. Those can go at the same time. But I can actually apply conscious choice to my decision making. I can look at these pain points through some discernment, understand what they are, or at least observe them, acknowledge them, listen. Where do they fit in the discernment of your choice? And then also the benefit that as you move into clarity and focus, you can have, access to your inner guidance. You're in touch with your inner guidance, and you build that self-trust when you know that you're hearing your inner guidance, even if you're nervous about it. Like, is it guidance? You can still question it. Sometimes I don't know what my inner guidance was until after the fact. And I can look back and go, oh, yeah. And hopefully I can say, boy, am I glad I listened to my inner guidance. And then sometimes it's like, oh, man, should have listened to my inner guidance. Can take you to clarity and focus so you can make more effective choices, strengthen your self-trust. You can gain clarity about your resources. What are your practicalities? What is your timing? Is there a timing that's better? What are your finances based on that decision? Going into emotional balance so that you can observe your emotions. Doesn't mean you have to get rid of them. You can have the emotion, you can have the feeling simultaneously as being conscious. We're feeling beings, so I'm not one to necessarily just like get rid of the feeling. But I also need to listen to the feeling and be balanced with it. That's where what we've been saying for all these years here in the Distance Reiki share, just stay stable and be kind. It's so simple. And I'll tell you, I think for me, it is probably one of my all-time most effective affirmations. Is that what it is? An affirmation? Yeah, an affirmation. So you'll build your own self-confidence, alignment with your values. Things can get simplified for you. Animal Reiki, we found the energy that came in for that. We asked it about its energy, and it said that it is simple, practical, and efficient. Those three words I apply to my decision making all the time. Simple, practical, and efficient. Path of least resistance. So you can gain mindfulness, you can gain insight. When you're listening, it provides the opportunity for those momentary insights. You're balanced, your perspectives are balanced. And that it also puts you in a state of mind where you are listening and continuously learning to move out of being stuck, so that you're listening, learning, taking yourself into that depth of inner knowing, your authentic intellect. Your authentic intellect knows. And it is more than your intelligence. It's your instincts, your intuition, your imagination. It's your inner knowing, inner awareness, your gut brain, your heart brain, your head brain. I also think of the earth brain and the divine brain, like the consciousness of all simply comes in and aligns. So, next week we're going to talk more about this. For the next couple of weeks, we're still going to look into the depth of decision making because, again, we think in terms of applied spirituality. And maybe right now for you, decision making isn't challenging, but you can still hear all of this or it doesn't even have to be challenging, but you can be in the mix of it. Like, I need to be thinking about my clarity of decisions. So, or maybe it is hard right now. So in any place that it is, activate Reiki, be aware that you're in a decision and observe it. Let it bring into that depth of knowing. You can activate Reiki on the fly. You can take a long time with it, a mix of all of the above, remembering those 5 Reiki ideals. So anyway, builds wisdom and over time, self-confidence and self-trust. And I think that's all I have to say about that.